Okay, do not touch your retirement savings. Now this is an important one, but before we get into it, if you find my content valuable, go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell. All right, let's get into this one. This one is a really important one. Do not touch your retirement savings. And you want to stick through the end of the video because we're going to talk about concepts here as well as some really tough statistics here of how people are handling their retirement savings that's really putting them in a detrimental position. And so listen through the end of the video to capture all of this and to hopefully get you to commit to keeping hands off of that retirement savings and giving it the ability to actually multiply and get to that critical mass, that boiling point that's needed in order for it to take care of you and get you to the level of financial freedom by time you choose to retire, or I like to say transition, and have financial freedom so that you're able to do what you want, when you want, and how you want to do it. Okay, let's get into this. People do not, I believe, completely understand what their retirement savings is, what that money is that they've actually put into something like a 401k. And throughout this video, we'll use the 401k as an example because many people have a 401k on their job. And so what does that savings mean? What does that money actually mean? Well, a lot of people think that it's kind of like a piggy bank. Let's say that you have $10,000 in your 401k. A lot of people just think that that's $10,000 that they can just grab at that moment and just take and spend on various things. But what it is really is what that actual money can earn for you. There is an individual, his name is, I may chop up this name a little bit, but I believe it's William Bingen, I think is the name, that came up with a 4% rule for the money that you accumulate for retirement or financial freedom. And what it basically says is that you can live for approximately 30 years without running out of money if you only withdraw 4% of what you have as your total nest egg, okay? And if you utilize this 4% rule, and I'm going to throw in a little bit of other math here, you generally need 25 times whatever it takes you to live on in a year. You need 25 times that saved to be in that safe range to use that 4% rule. So let's say that you want to live on $40,000 a year. And this can be done if you're out of debt, maybe don't have a house payment. $40,000 is a solid amount of money. Well, 25 times 40,000 is $1 million. So if you save $1 million and you go by this 4% rule rather, you should be able to draw $40,000 annually from that $1 million, and it should last you very, very comfortably in most situations, whether the stock market goes through some volatility and things like that. It should last you through 30 years. So this 4% rule is a good kind of rule of thumb to kind of utilize for your money. And so you want to kind of think that way, that it's 4% that you will be living on rather than, just grabbing the whole thing. That way your mindset is correct about that money that you've accumulated for retirement. It's a lot better way to think about the money that you've accumulated. Now, what people are doing instead of that, instead of thinking of it as a long-term kind of percentage that they'll be drawing off of what they've accumulated, they just take it all at once. And there's all sorts of challenges that kind of throw people off. One thing that I think about is that people are not staying on jobs as long as they did in the past. In the past, over a 30-year working career, people would stay at one job. You would have people who would stay at one job throughout that 30 years. Now, on average, people move to 12 different jobs over a working lifetime. Some of those jobs, let's even say half of those jobs that they worked on had a 401k. That means that they will have 6 different 401ks if they have 12 jobs in their lifetime. And unfortunately, the statistic is that about a third of Americans, 33%, are actually cashing out that retirement when they leave a job. This is not a good statistic, because what happens is, if you take out that retirement, there's the 55 rule. If you leave a job at the year that you're 55, you're not penalized for taking money out. But if it's before age 55, then they're paying a 10% penalty, plus you have to pay taxes on that money. So not only are they taking that 10% penalty, but they're also paying taxes on it. Let's say that you have $7,000. That means that you might get maybe around $4,000 if you were to just cash out that 401k. Now, $4,000 is still a pretty good amount of money. But that's not what you should actually be doing. You should roll over that 401k into the new job that you're in. It's a twofold benefit of doing that. One, you aren't taking on those penalties. And then 2, it simplifies things for you when you actually get to retirement or financial freedom, that you have your assets in one place rather than all over the place. But there's also another benefit, okay? If you roll it over rather than taking it out, you are not taking soldiers off the field that can actually get you to, like we talked about earlier, that boiling point, or that point of actually getting to critical mass, okay, where you're accumulating. You know, first you're accumulating your first $10,000 in savings, and then your first $100,000 in savings, and then it can climb and climb to $500,000 of savings, $500,000, and then you can even get to that magical, and I like thinking about that number of $1 million for your retirement savings. But if you don't leave it alone, you won't hit the magic of compounding interest, okay? Compounding interest is a magical thing. Einstein called it the 8th wonder of the world. There's an exercise that you can actually look up about doubling a penny every single day. If you were to double a penny every single day, this is an extreme example of compounding interest. But if I gave you a penny today, and then it doubled tomorrow and it became 2 pennies, and then it doubled the next day and became 4 pennies, and the following day it was 8 pennies. Well, by the 30th day, you would have over $5 million. Now, this is an extreme example of compounding interest, but compounding interest is an extraordinary thing, even at 10%, rather than that 100% every single day. Even at 10% annually, compounding interest is phenomenal. And that is what the S&P 500, through its history, has returned, about a 10% return. And if you can receive that from something like an S&P 500 fund within your 401k, it is powerful what you can end up with. But to have the benefit of that compounding interest, you have to not touch what is in your account. You gotta leave it alone. You gotta allow it to grow. I kind of think about it like a tree. You plant a tree. Let's say it's an oak tree. You put that seed in the ground, And in the beginning, you want to water that. You want to protect it. You know, you want to make sure that you're giving it the nutrients it needs and so on. But what if you were to go by that every day and just stomp on the ground? You know, beat down on the ground around that tree. You don't water it. You know, dig up the soil around it all the time. Well, that tree is probably going to die. It certainly isn't going to grow up and flourish and actually become that huge oak tree that is strong and big and large, okay? I even, to change the analogy a little bit, turn that into a fruit tree. Let's say it's an orange tree, and you want to actually do those things, water it, make sure that it has the nutrients it needs and so on, and it grows up into a full-grown orange tree. And then each year, you're able to pick off those wonderful oranges off of the tree and enjoy them and actually consume those wonderful oranges year after year after year if you take care of that tree. Well, it's the same with your savings. You want your retirement savings, and we're using the example of a 401k. You want to leave it alone and let that money that you're putting in grow over time and have that compounding interest happen over and over and over again to where it gets full grown, where every single year you're able to pick off a certain amount of income to support your lifestyle over and over and over again because you allowed it to grow and you did not go and rob it like many Americans do. The other thing that Americans are doing with their 401k is taking loans out, or they're withdrawing, doing hardship withdrawals when things happen. Even on a first home purchase, you're able to take some out of your 401k to put towards a first home purchase. And I know homes are getting expensive, and I know that we have so many things going on out here that make it difficult. There have been natural disasters that have happened, and you're able to do hardship deferrals or withdrawals rather from your 401k when these events happen. Like I said, we've had floods happen here in the United States, tornadoes, fires, and different things like that. So you're able to take from your 401k with a hardship withdrawal when these natural disasters happen. But I really caution, under those extreme circumstances, maybe as a last resort, you take that out of your 401k. But you really want to think very, very hard about whether it is really an emergency. Because what you're doing is taking soldiers off of the field in your battle for financial freedom. And when you take soldiers off of the field, you're probably going to lose the war of reaching that financial freedom, that glorious point to where your assets are able to pay for your lifestyle. So you want to be very, very careful for that not to happen to you. And what you can do is avoid that almost at all costs. Make sure that you're doing a complete evaluation about whether you can do something else in your situation to cover whatever expense or emergency or anything else that's come in. In a lot of these videos, I've talked about taking steps, saving $2,000. Of course, taking advantage of the company match if you have that at work. That's 100% return on your money. Getting rid of consumer debts like credit cards, or if you have something like a car that is too expensive for your budget, or even if you're living in a home that's too expensive for your budget. If you do those things and get rid of those payments, then you have margin within your budget to then build your assets like your 401k. And you want to build and build that. And if you run into a difficulty, hopefully you've taken some of those financial steps, like having an emergency fund. I mentioned the $2,000 emergency fund, but after you get rid of consumer debt, even having that 3 to 6 month emergency fund. For many folks, that will be somewhere in the $10,000 range to have a 6-month emergency fund. If you get to that point and an emergency hits, then you have those resources to take care of that emergency. So you want to look at that. Or if you find yourself in an emergency, is there anywhere else that you can go to get those funds than robbing your 401k and taking away your ability to have compounding interest work for you in the future? I'll throw another little concept in here, and that's a concept of actually caring about your future self. In the future, you may not be able to work as hard as you work right now because you get older and maybe your body can't handle the work that you're doing right now. Or you may just not want to work as much as you're working right now. Give your future self the ability to have the option to work less or not to work at all. Give your future self that option. Care enough about your future self to set your future self up in a good way. And one way that you can do that is to allow that 401k to gain critical mass, to get to its first 10,000, to get to its first 50,000, to get to its first 100,000 and beyond. Give that 401k the ability to get wings and fly for you so that your assets can actually support your lifestyle. I hope that this has been one that's made you think and reflect on what that 401k is for you. It is the goose that is laying golden eggs for you. Don't be like that old tale about the farmer that had the goose that laid the golden eggs for him. And he was taking those golden eggs and was happy in the beginning, but he became greedy and he killed the goose and cut it open and found out that there were no eggs in it. Don't raid your 401k like that. Don't kill the goose that in the future will lay the golden eggs again that will allow your assets to pay for your lifestyle. Again, if you find my content valuable, go ahead and hit that thumbs up button, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell. I wish the best for you in your financial journey. Thanks again for listening.